you all for being here. Our project is about water conservation campaigns in Sharjah. I'm Pooja Patel.
I'm Olgetny.
I'm Kyla.
I'm Rafael Pimentel.
To set the stage, water conservation has been growing in importance, and as a result, SIWA has run numerous educational campaigns to raise awareness. Our group was tasked to understand these types of campaigns, design them, and then test them with the Sharjah public. The agenda of our presentation is seen on the screen. First, we'll state our mission, then give relevant background, state our methods, and then from there we'll discuss our findings, conclusion, and recommendations. Our mission for our project was to determine an impactful method for designing water conservation campaigns in Sharjah. To begin with a little background, the UAE has an arid climate and it as a result has water stress. Water stress results when the increase in consumption is met with limited water resources, and some factors contributing to this stress state are the increasing population, tourism to the area, the high temperatures, and limited rainfall. On the screen is a chart depicting the total water produced in Sharjah in billion gallons, and we can see the groundwater produced has started to decrease, whereas the desalinated water has been increasing, so we can see the overall trend of an increasing in the total water produced. Our project is taking a different approach. In addition to producing more to meet the demand, we can also teach to consume less water.
So now that we've went into the background information, we're going to talk about our methods. So our project is consisting of 3 phases. The first one, we're exploring campaigns within Sharjah to kind of understand what are the current campaigns being implemented. In the second phase, we get ideas from the locals of Sharjah and we create 3 water conservation campaigns from that. And then in the third phase, we ask people for feedback on those campaigns. So right now we're going to talk about the exploration phase. So we wanted to explore the current conservation efforts on campus. So we did an observational study on the AUS campus, and we also conducted interviews with SIWA and AUS. So we explored the different buildings on campus, and we took pictures of each campaign we saw. So it didn't necessarily need to be water conservation. It was anything that was encouraging somebody to change their behavior. So whether it was recycling or telling somebody to attend an event to learn how to fix their resume, we documented it to explore the different elements. Additionally, we had a report from SIWA, so it was their 2018 achievements. So an example of some of the campaigns that they held in 2018 is Be Aware in Peak Hour. So we took screen captures of the different campaigns in that report, and then on the AUS campus, for example, the social media posts from the AUS Office of Sustainability, we recorded those campaigns as well. So between AUS and SIWA, we recorded 70 campaigns in total. And then also with the interviews, we wanted to get insight from the campaign creators directly, so kind of understanding how do they create these campaigns, what were the outcomes they got, to kind of understand on the more campaign creator level. So we interviewed representatives from the AUS Office of Sustainability as well as representatives from the SIWA Conservation Department. With the campaigns that we recorded, we analyzed them with 2 marketing frameworks. So the first one is the marketing mix, and it has the 7 elements listed on the screen. And then additionally the hook model, which has these 4 elements. So these are the design elements that we could kind of analyze a campaign by. So where was it located? Was there a price for it? What was the trigger to draw people in? Was there a reward for people to engage in it? We took each campaign and annotated them based upon these different elements to kind of understand and make any comparisons. In the software that we used was called NVivo. So these are the different categories we used in NVivo. And now we're going to talk about our second phase design.
So for second phase design, we wanted to create lots of ideas for water conservation campaigns, and then create 3 prototypes. For this, we use the science sprint methodology, which is used by many top companies to generate lots of ideas to solve a specific issue. We ran 2-hour design sprint workshops consisting of 6 stages, which I will explain in the following slides. But before that, we want to talk about our recruitment. So our participants were the AUS community because they have a better insight on the situation in Sharjah. We distributed a flyer through social media and emails, and through bulletin boards to reach out to them. We create a certificate of participation, and we also run a pilot test to make sure that the deliverables of the design sprint were correct in terms of time and communication to the participants. For our understand stage of the design sprint, we wanted to communicate the goals, situation, challenge, and deliverables to the participants. Prompt that we told them was, how might we encourage water conservation in the Emirate of Sharjah? For a second stage, define, we wanted to narrow down the problem. So we gave them specific topics about water conservation, and they discussed about them. For a third stage, diverge. The goal was to come up with ideas for water conservation. So they brainstorm and categorize these ideas. For our fourth stage, decide, they had to come up with one campaign to use for the next stage. So they discussed the pros and cons of the previously categorized ideas and chose one campaign to continue with. For our fifth stage, prototype, they had to transform the chosen idea into a physical prototype. So we gave them materials, or they could also use laptops or their phones to create a campaign, which then they would present in our sixth stage. They would present to the other teams the campaign they had come up with. Now we're going to move on onto the phase 3.
So phase 3 is the feedback phase. After we have created the campaigns, we wanted to get and ask people and get their feedback on the 3 campaigns regarding the content and design and the engagement aspect. So we did interviews with SIWA, and we also did surveys with Sharjah residents. The surveys were done at AOS campus, and also it was done at an event at the Sharjah National Park. In the interviews, we presented our 3 campaigns to the SIWA representative of the conservation department, and we asked them questions regarding, and we want to get their feedback regarding the content, the design, and the delivery of the campaigns. And also we wanted to ask them to rank the 3 campaigns. The process of the interview was recorded and transcribed to highlight any feedback that we can get. For the surveys, we divided the questions into 3 categories: engagement, content, and design. One example from each would be, would you like the post, or was the message of the campaign was clear, and what do you like about the design or layout of the campaign. And now we are gonna talk about the finding for phase 1.
So from phase 1, we analyzed the 70 campaigns, and originally we had these frameworks that were empty, so we didn't know what the place was, we didn't know the product or the price, but with each campaign we saw, we figured out different subcategories of each. For example, with the promotion from the marketing mix, we figured out that a lot of the campaigns, they were promoted because it was a physical campaign. So what I mean is it was an event that people saw, and then they were drawn to it by just seeing this event going on. Similarly, flyers to advertise, whether it's telling people to wash their hands while they're cooking or things like that. And then also with the trigger for the hook model, the different things we've noticed, for example, a lot of them were suggesting behavior, so not really demanding to attend an event or something like that, just a suggestion for someone. And so with these, we calculated the instances for each one of the 70 campaigns for all of the different elements. So there was 7 from the marketing mix and 4 from the hook model. These are just 2 examples. So after doing that, we have several key findings we noticed. So a lot of campaigns are in high traffic area where they're visible and accessible by the target audience. Also, the delivery method should be tailored directly to the target audience. For example, with SIWA, when they're targeting campaigns for children, it'll be in a school and also use puppets, things to interest the children, so that it's directly for that target audience. Another one was the design process, so campaigns to have colors or graphics, something that represents the message without text for people that they could see and understand it quickly. Lastly, messaging and incentives, we noticed allow people to feel like the campaign is related to them. So if you have a message that relates to a personal experience or you have a reward, it answers the question, what's in it for the person? Now we're going to talk about our findings from phase 2.
The phase 2 findings were regarding the design sprint workshop, and so our findings were relating to the workshop process, the emergent themes, and the campaign prototypes. Within the workshop process, we found that it was important to check for understanding, make sure we were giving clear instructions so our participants would be able to produce the correct outcome. Within emergent themes, we found content, delivery, incentives, and messaging. And then within campaign prototypes, we determined the types of campaigns, messaging, and target audiences that were used. From the 2 workshops we held, we produced 9 campaigns. 2 were flyers, 1 was a social media post, 2 were 2 phone applications, 1 device, 1 game, and 2 events. For example, 1 team produced a Blue Day at AUS, and that was an event. Another group produced a device which was a waterless brush with water. However, some of these may not have been realistic. We were encouraging the participants to use as many creative ideas as they could. With these campaigns, we did our analysis. We did matrix evaluations. In the first chart, we listed each campaign was assigned a number, and based on that, we determined the themes that emerged. And the second chart is the deliverables. So that would have been informative, app, event, social media, that type of thing. And then from the second chart, we determined the 3 campaign methods of delivery that we would use to produce our own campaigns. The first campaign that we produced was a social media post, and this post was 5 tips to conserve water, and each image included a statistic or fact and a call to action. So for example, image 2, 1 water drop per minute equals 200 liters per year. That was the statistic. And the call to action would be check for water leaks. The second campaign we produced was an awareness event, and we named it World Water Day. And this was an event to target families, children. It included a variety of activities, and this was to raise awareness on conservation. It included sections such as a kids section and a SIWA section to promote water-saving devices. The third campaign was a user interface redesign of the SIWA app with the additional feature of a water consumption tracker. So in image 3, we can see it says be careful, and the user would see this if they were going above their average use.
So we got different findings from the feedback that people gave us after we presented the 3 campaigns. So one question that we asked them is, was the campaign valuable? And all of them said yes for both the social media and app campaigns. However, interestingly, 5% said no, they don't think the message was valuable for the event. Another question, we also asked them about the engagement with the campaign, and by that we mean if for the social media would be like liking the post, and for the app would be continuing using the features within the app, and for the event would be attending the event. As you can see, like there are different rates of answers people gave, and one reason we think that might have an effect is how much time and effort people are actually putting in going to the event. Like for the event, for example, people have had to go like to the event and they have to make time for it, and they need to think about it. But on the other hand, for the app and social media, they can do it whenever and however they want. Also, we have found different findings within each campaign. For example, for the social media, it was better, or it was an effective method to use graphics as a way to deliver an informational campaign. And for the app, it was people preferred to use minimalistic design over design that has multiple colors and themes. And lastly, one way to engage more people within the event is using incentives. And by that we mean maybe using social media influencers to come and promote the event, or even creating competition between people to compete and win awards. And that will increase the people who actually like go to the events.
So now that we've discussed the methods and findings of each of the distinct phases, now we're going to give a brief conclusion and how they relate. So in the first phase, we wanted to explore the different campaigns in Sharjah. How are they designed? Who do they target? And determine those different elements. In the second phase, we wanted to incorporate locals into the design process of the campaigns to get meaningful feedback from the people that are living here and experiencing water stress. And we created 3 campaigns from that, which we then tested for feedback in phase 3 by going into the community of Sharjah at the National Park and also on the AUS campus. So now we're going to discuss the recommendations.
So we divided up our recommendations into our 3 phases. From our phase 1, some of our recommendations would be to use marketing frameworks to dissect campaigns. Also, to continue to use campaign formats that best suit the target audience. From our phase 2 recommendations, we want to encourage CEWA to run and participate in design spring workshops, and also use pilot tests to make sure that the deliverables of the design spring workshop are correct. From our phase 3 recommendations is to continue to request feedback from the target audience, and also to redesign the CEWA app with a user-friendly design.
So lastly, we would like to thank our project advisor, Dr. Joseph Dorian, and also Dr. John Bengador for their help for the last term. And also we would like to thank CEWA, Dr. Gies, Ms. Miad, and Mr. Walid, and the whole of the conservation department for their help. Also, we would like to thank iOS, the student faculty, and also all the offices that helped us contribute to the design and for the whole project, and also the college engineering, Dean Naif, and the associate Dean Asim, and Dr. Martella for all their help. And lastly, we also would like to thank our student partner, Ibrahim Abu Layla and Muhammad Abu Halima for their help and contribution within our project. Thanks so much for listening. If you have any questions, you may ask.
I will start. You have met the conservation department, and you have an idea about the campaigns that have been going on during the last 2 years. So, what did you get as the impact of those campaigns related to whatever you are suggesting?
So we've noticed a lot of the campaigns want to target the new generation, so teaching the kids when they're young, and also targeting housewives, and just trying to make sure that it's starting young, so going into schools. So that's one thing we've noticed, and that CEWA has a lot of different types of campaigns, so that it attracts everyone. So whether it's on Instagram or whether it's an event, CEWA is very interactive and tries to target everyone to make sure the message is going across. And then they also said that they test the outcomes through surveys, which is what we were also doing, trying to do those surveys and interviews to see how people would interact with them. And then also having people give the feedback and ask them to produce the same campaigns for different targets. So saying, hey, I really like this lecture, can you give it to this group now? Those are the certain things that we've noticed in the conservation department.
Have you included those campaigns in your analysis and metrics?
So with the first phase, that was all the exploration when we interviewed, and in our report we go through the findings more in detail about the different things we've noticed. And then when we did phase 2 in the matrix, those were only the ideas from the students in the design sprint. So the 9 campaigns were solely just what AUS faculty, staff, and students they came up with, and then that's when we did the matrix analysis.
So what do you think CEWA should focus on in the future with the conservation campaigns?
So we have a lot of different elements. So in the paper we go into a lot more detail. We had some of the key points, so target audience, delivery method, kind of understanding these things and how to directly relate the campaign to the people so that they'll want to engage, those types of things. It's a lot more in detail in the paper, but it's because we use those marketing frameworks and there's so many elements, it's a lot of information, and we have detailed recommendations in the paper as well for CEWA, which we will be presenting to you guys.
Thank you.
Could you go back to the slide that showed the different engagement for social media, app, and event? Yeah. So, is there any comparison to just the total number of people you reach? So, for example, the app, if someone takes the initiative to download an app on their phone, they're already pretty engaged. But social media might get to just many more people. I mean, in terms of total number of people you reach, did you have that analysis in your paper?
So we surveyed 120 people, so 40 for each campaign, and within that we determined that social media and app would be the highest engagement, but we also presented the app receiving feedback as if they already had the CEWA app on their phone.
And there were some limitations when we were presenting. So social media, we had the mock-ups,